Looks like he's coming our way. Hopefully we can scare him away. Alright, so I spied this kick-ass game trail a couple months ago up this logging road, deactivated logging road. I thought I'd better go check it out and bring a camera. I finally remembered to bring a camera, and here I am into this big chunk of awesome frickin' timber. Big trees. Wow. See if maybe we can get set up and hear some voices. I don't know, we'll see. I can't be out in the sun, I'm just roasted. Roasted. Too much sun already, so. I was hoping I'd come in here and there wouldn't be too many mosquitoes. Maybe see some more elk sign. Doesn't seem like there's that much, but I'm sure they're here. It's pretty windy. Let's see how I make out here. I'll see if I can situate somewhere in this big timber and see how it goes. Maybe even on that log, maybe. That's what I do it. I'll try here. All right. All right, there's a bank behind me there. There's a concerned woodpecker. I was out on the logging road there for a while, putting on some jeans instead of shorts in case there was mosquitoes in here. I didn't know. And I'd be lying if I didn't hear something in here when I brought my camera and tripod out of the truck. I heard something in here. I don't know what it was. It would have caught my attention, but whatever. It's story time for whoever wants to listen. Story time for whoever wants to listen. We had a couple of real cool people came out fishing with me for the day. Avid listeners to the channel and avid listeners to all of you from Reno. Reno, all the way up here from Reno. They're taking their time. They get to have a holiday. I think there's 7 kids between the two of them. And it's funny how I notice of the people that I meet through here, whether it be fishing or having on the channel with me, it seems everyone has the same demeanor. Chill, relax, know what's going on, and confident. I love it. I love it. And not emotionally bent or weak or out of control, like a lot of the population is today. So that's pretty cool to see that and realize, take note of that. I haven't had too much sleep the past few days, so I might be rambling a little bit. Maybe I'll just get into hearing some voices. What do you think about that? Let's hear it. Now, I'm on my way home. Got a 28-pound salmon this morning. That's pretty cool. Now, who do we got? What do we got? I hope this wind isn't ruining things. I can feel it on my face pretty good, but hopefully this microphone's cover can take care of that. Hey there, Steve. First up, I want to say thank you for doing all the things. Thank you for doing all you're doing on this topic. It's nice to have such a credible, professional person to finally publicly speaking truths on this topic. Appreciate the kind words, my man. Or my lady. Okay, my name is Jade Bull. I was born and raised in the Sierra Nevadas in a place called Shaver Lake, California at about 6,000 feet elevation, just south of Yosemite. Living in high elevation mountains is a lifelong necessity to cut firewood to survive. In my mountain range, we have a prized pine wood that only grows above 8,000 feet called tamarack. Very familiar with that. Have I read this? So during the summer, My buddy and I would make our trips up the mountain to collect our firewood for the coming winter. Usually we'd go to a remote area called Sample Meadow. When we were finished for the day, we would grab a couple of beers and hike to a close-by creek to cool off and explore around before heading home. This afternoon in 2004, we walked to the other side of this ridge and found a small creek. We sat down leaning on a couple trees and drank a couple beers while cooling off. We heard what sounded like a person walking close by. We both looked at each other, then looked towards the sound. And at about 50 yards away was a Sasquatch about 6 feet tall walking towards us like it hadn't noticed we were there. I instantly was scared, but didn't feel threatened at that point. We were both just frozen looking at this thing. It was about 35 yards away. It finally noticed us. It looked right at us, but didn't seem surprised or startled at all. And for some reason, my buddy and I both sat down, not taking our eyes off this thing. We then heard a whistle up above us. The creature looked back up the hill, then back at us. Then a whistle from below us and sounded pretty close. It looked uphill, though, again, then back at us. We were both just sitting there frozen, pretty much in awe of what's happening. The one we're looking at made a clicking sound with its mouth, then showed us its teeth, but it seemed in a playful, not threatening way, like a kid. But what's crazy is it looked downhill and took a few steps downhill as we heard footsteps start to approach from uphill, which was behind us. Like it was taking our attention off their movements on purpose. And about 20 yards to our right, a huge 8.5 to 9 foot monster was walking straight downhill right across the front of us towards the smaller one. And as it walked by, it looked down at us and made a deep, gruntled growl sound, like saying, "Don't effing move." It met up with the small one. The big boy whistled again. The one below whistled back, and they both headed downhill towards that one. And right as they walked away, the big boy looked back at us one more time and shook his head like what's up, as to saying, "You guys are good to go now." Yeah, I did read this. I read this one. Not a bad thing to read it again for somebody who hasn't heard it, though. I'm almost done. It was the most amazing experience I've ever had, but terrifying. And over the years in this area, I always felt like we were being watched, but never seen anything until this day. My buddy and I finally stood up and promptly started back to the truck. All we were saying was, "Oh my God, what the F, let's go, oh my God." On our ride home, we talked about the whole experience. And I was saying how that was the one time I didn't have a gun with me when going on that walk in that area. Maybe that's a good thing. Might have been a whole different experience if I had. My buddy didn't want to tell anyone, so I respected his request until now writing you. I told my father, but no one else. That's why I won't mention his name, but you can mention mine. Appreciate you and all you're doing. Thanks, Jade Bull. This encounter is in the Sample Meadow area above Huntington Lake, California. I'm going to title this as Look Into. Maybe you want to come on here and have a conversation with me about what you saw. I wouldn't mind hearing it from you. That'd be great. That's one hell of an incredible experience. I got some mosquitoes the size of frickin' planes coming after me here. And now horsefly. Deerfly. Oh, you look right in the face. Shit. What should I do? Should I leave and finish this up in the shop? Maybe. Oh yeah, this deerfly, horsefly is not going to leave me alone, is it? Pretty big trees in here. Here's one fresh out of the pan. For certain. My encounters. Hi Steve, I've written in before telling about my uncle's encounters back in the 70s in upstate South Carolina. Now I've had some encounters that I thought were strange, and letting me know that they're out there without me seeing one yet. And last year in August, my wife and I were on vacation in the Bryson City area of North Carolina. We had rented a cabin that was off to itself, close to the top of one of the mountains in the area. And while relaxing in the In the hot tub on the deck at night, these little orbs of light would come towards us from the forest surrounding the cabin. And as I got near to where we were, they would get very bright, just disappear. Of course, my wife would have her eyes closed, leaving me as the only one to see this. And one of the nights, there was a very loud scream, followed by what sounded like a barred owl. This scared my wife enough that she went inside. After she left me outside, I heard things crashing through the brush in the forest. Not wanting to chance it, I then went into the house too. Now, 2 months later, we're back up in this area, but like 15 miles from the cabin we stayed in 2 months earlier. We were out in the hot tub one evening and my wife said she was cold and went in the house. And I'd been out in the hot tub maybe 5 minutes after she went in, and then there was a sound like someone had hit a hard-thrown baseball with a wooden bat. The sound seemed very close by. Once again, I took the hint and went in the house. I'm quite sure these things exist, even though I've not set my eyes on one. That wood knock that night was pretty much enough evidence for me. Anyway, keep up the good work on this channel, and thanks for giving us voices about this topic. Sincerely, BP. It's too easy, my man. Appreciate you sending that in. This place is nothing without people like you. You know they're out there. You know what it was. Okay, these mosquitoes are starting to hone in. Big time. How long is this one? Okay, I'm going to muscle through this one, then I'm going to whip back to the shop. We'll finish up in there. Oh, you little bastards. Oh, they're getting me all over. Over 50 plus years of sightings and encounters. Steve, I've sent in, and you have told a few of my encounters to the community. I never went looking for these people, which is what they are. I've learned a lot over the years about these people, with all the sightings, encounters, experiences. Then came your channel. First was the hunting channel part that drew me in. Then you started the community here. The knowledge poured in, confirmed a lot of what I thought to be true with these people. Like it was said, if thousands of people are seeing and experiencing match much, it is true. I too am a truth seeker, and I have the saying, bracket, the truth is exactly what happened, end bracket. I've had so much contact that it is like a neighbor. It's like a neighbor anymore. Oh, hey, it's just them. Visual sights are probably in the 15-ish range last count. And it's weird how sights and encounters stick out of memory. I've had a conversation with you about my experience / encounters. Oh, sorry. I would have a conversation with you about my experiences / encounters if you want. I have had face-to-face encounters on many occasions. Surrounded by 3, which you read. My family, my son, my wife, and I had a very scary cabin on 80 acres encounter that made my wife at the time, now ex, leave the next day at 4 in the morning. I've hunted and fished my whole life, and I'm 55 now, and my family are nowheres. I have had encounters in Florida, Kentucky, and Michigan, and I live in Michigan. All over the state of Michigan to the Upper Peninsula. Steve, if you really think about it, they're a lot like us humans. Different sizes, colors, body shapes. We have hair growing mostly where they do, except theirs grows longer and fuller and they don't shave, LOL. I'm pretty sure it's a gene we don't have. Just like the world's tallest, they had a special growth gene, so do the forest people. Makes sense. This email's getting long and I could write you a straight up book, but it probably wouldn't be enough to get it all in. Anytime you want to talk about it, let me know. I want to get my knowledge and experiences to the community that will fill some gaps for someone. Thanks for your time and your steady education on your path with the forest people. It's not taboo anymore. Dan Priest. Okay, Dan. Mark this as look into, and we will have Sarah get a hold of you, and we'll do it. Appreciate you contacting all of us here. All right, I think maybe I can get through this one. I'm gonna try. I think I got the one deer fly, but there's gonna be more about coming back. We'll see. Mosquitoes. This is titled, That Was a New One. Hi Steve, buckled up. She's gonna be a little longer. Your YouTube channel came across my feed at some point this spring due to the commonality of cryptid content as well as the outdoors. The algorithms aren't always a bad thing, and I'm very thankful for the Club in a Return community. I lived across Western Canada my entire life, and I've been in BC for the last 18 years. We lived on a farm when I was quite young in rural Manitoba. It wasn't until I was in junior high, or maybe high school, that a classmate of mine had brought up Sasquatch as a serious topic. They had a ranch and said that they regularly heard screams that didn't sound like anything else. Naturally, being a teenager without my own noted experience, I didn't believe that could be true. In my bedroom in town, where my mom still lives, I woke one night to a very bright light in the street/field. It wasn't an early dawn as it was just this area. Later on, I had drawn a photo of what I saw and thought that maybe it was connected to a UFO. There's a lot of UFO sightings in rural southern Manitoba that I recalled hearing stories when you grow up. If only we could be properly educated on the possibilities of what we may see out there instead of being brainwashed sheep in the factory worker training we get, right? I drove most of my teachers nuts with the amount of questions I asked, and if it didn't make sense, I just kept asking. I look back at my early years on the farm and wonder if we had some guardians in our forest as well. Several small children running around the farm and through our forests, building forts, playing, and myself being the gopher, having to run back and forth to the house a mile away or so to fetch items such as toilet paper for my older brother/stepbrother. We had massive timber wolves, a dense population of black bears, and a lot of ungulates among the other smaller common animals. We also were told until 2007 that there were no cougars there. And I saw a track down the road from our farmhouse, and I also saw a cougar walking to the quarry with my dog. There are areas where we were told to avoid, like the dump areas of dead livestock, etc., and an old abandoned farmhouse that was overtaken by the forest. In early adulthood, I became a medic, industrial first aid for oil and gas work, for those of you who don't know, out of Fort St. John. I'd gone up the Alaska Highway a few times with some family, as well as Harley rides with my dad to a Sasquatch crossing. That's at Pink Mountain. As a medic, I also stayed at that camp one winter as well. For those who don't know it, it has a large wood-carved Sasquatch. Yeah, it's out front side of the highway. You wonder seeing things like this. Are we just bushed? Or do people actually believe they see these things? Might be a couple typos maybe. I've had many near misses in life where I think I should have just died. I always try to thank my guardian angels for keeping me safe and carry on. I've lived and nursed all over BC for the last 14 years, and I'm surprised that for how remote I would solo hike with my dogs that we didn't run into anything. Perhaps we were watched from a distance, but left alone as we frequented the areas. Sometimes I'd have a really creepy feeling and chalk it up to a cougar watching us. Praise them, not liking dogs. During COVID, my place on the Sunshine Coast was full of mold that nearly killed my older dog and put me in ER with a severe asthma attack. Naturally, with the pandemic reaction of everyone leaving the lower mainland, the Sunshine Coast was flooded with more people, making it even more challenging to find affordable and pet-friendly housing. Selling my home up north just prior to the pandemic was very unfortunate timing and led to me being in my Nissan Rogue for a year and a half off and on between travel assignments where I could sometimes find housing. During the time back on the coast, I would go up into the logging roads I hiked on and was comfortable. I always made sure I didn't have to get out when I backed into places so that when I woke up, everything seemed fine. I could just crawl up front and drive off. A friend of mine got in my head about thinking it wasn't safe to be parking out there. If only she offered me her vacant, unfinished basement instead of making me worry about my choice. I had attempted to sleep in the parking lot at the hospital, and that was loud and creepy, as was then trying to stay at parks that didn't have no overnight parking signs. And needless to say, I went back to parking on logging roads. I had a number of times I woke up suspicious of whether something was outside, but the most fear-evoking moments I had were from other human beings. Now that both my dogs have passed, I tend to frequent more traveled places. I suppose now living in Kelowna, I miss them even more. And getting out away from people getting out away from people is like a distant dream. Last week I decided to go for a bike ride up Myer Bellevue Trestle Trail. It was a beautiful day and I hoped that going up the mountain would be cooler. I'd walked this trail a few times in the winter but hadn't biked it before, so there's this one big gray boulder field coming around this one corner. So I turned my head to look up to my right and I saw this very tall, black as pitch thing standing there. Within 2 seconds of seeing it, it dropped. It was as if the ground opened up to a hole in it, and it dropped so fast and fluid. Excuse me. I kept pedaling, looking back and forth up there, thinking, did I just finally see one? Part of me wanted to stop and say, hey, I saw you. Come out and say hello. The other part of me was like, you're not sure who that was, and you can't go back from having ongoing, repeated experiences. And as I work at the tertiary site of our health authority, I get the opportunity to nurse people from all over the interior. For long dressing changes, I've had another know or not believer turn on these episodes to listen to while I work. It's nice being able to talk about the truth of the world despite not liking how things are going / being ran. I also have asked a few patients / family members if they've ever seen a Sasquatch. Some have. Some know folks / neighbors who have, and others have heard tree knocks and other sounds. I'm proud of having the courage of not allowing others' fears to infiltrate my capacity to enjoy nature. I love the outdoors, wildlife, animals, and some people. I'm thankful for everyone's experiences you're sharing and your very valuable take and insight on the world events. Being the ripe age of 36, I didn't start questioning the institution / narrative quite as vigorously as I have since the Rona pandemic. Reactions to both poison mandated shots, and I hope that I don't drop like a fly like so many other young and healthy folks have. One of my very few regrets in life is getting those damn things, and the kicker was how terribly sick I ended up getting from the virus when I did get it. Stay safe out there, and please never lose the no BS attitude we all know and value. Thank you for everything you do for our community. Lori, appreciate you sending that email in. And you know what? If you're still having some after effects from that jabberoonie, ivermectin's worked for a lot of people. A lot of people. I want to give it a go for a week. Oh, Sunshine Coast. Should be called the Sasquatch Coast, what goes on around there. But I gotta get out of here, guys. I think I'm gonna continue this on when I get home. I noticed there's a big huckleberry bush right beside me. It's about 8 feet, 9 feet tall, and all the berries are picked off. They're all gone. A few berries left on the next one over. Oh, these bugs are crazy. All right, I'm gonna get moving. Actually, you know what I might do when I get home? I still have Justin Myer came on here and we got chopped off. Maybe I'll pin up our first part of his conversation and I'll get a hold of him pretty quick and we'll finish off our conversation. How's that sound? Maybe I'll do that. Because I'm sure once I get home, Sarah's going to have a bunch of chores for me. Share my story at howtohunt.com. Get me your truth shared, all right? I mean, get your truth shared with everyone through me. I want to go for a hike to this timber one day, this big timber patch. I don't know why, I do. All right, moving along. Oh, did I just have my trail camera, right? All right, I'll be back shortly. So where are you, physically or geographically?
Central Wyoming.
Central Wyoming. Holy cow! How's the weather over there? Is it hot?
Yeah, it's been hot. It's been up in the 90s recently, so
Yeah. You got air conditioning?
a little bit, not much.
Oh, I just got roasted yesterday. I'm sunburnt, man. So what's going on? What do you know? What's been happening?
Not a whole lot, really. It's just trying to take one day at a time.
Right on. So you've had some encounters with these hairy people, have you?
I have. First one was in 93 up in close to Billings, Montana when I was living up there. Then down here in Riverton where I live, you got the Wind River that cuts through town, and they're just all over out there. You hear stories from the First Nations out there on the Wind River Reservation. You hear stories. You've read some stories from the guy that had an encounter up in DuBois, Wyoming, up in the Wind River Canyon, not too far from where I live. And there's a lot of wooded area that just follows the river. Yeah. And that's where they hang out at. And there's these public ponds where they like to hang out at. You see signs of them all the time. The broken limbs as big as my arm, reaching up to 10, 12 feet up in the trees sometimes. Entire trees with the limbs broken off, shoved in backwards. There's one, I don't know what you want to call it, but you could climb inside this thing, well, step into it, and you could tell that they made it the way it's weaved and everything. And they're just, you see the footprints every now and then. They're not too vocal down here. Sometimes at night, if we park, me and my wife, if we park down there at night, you could hear them sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
The rock clacking, the imitation of the owls, an owl communicating with a woodpecker type of thing.
Yeah, in the middle of the night.
That's a giveaway. Sometimes you'll hear the whoops, sometimes you won't. They're not very vocal down here.
So, were you hunting or fishing when you first became aware? Like, how'd you even find out these people running around in the forest?
All related to fishing activities. In 93 up in Billings, Montana as well, there's these two ponds along the Yellowstone River, public ponds, and wooded area, and went down there one March morning, and I'm sitting fishing off the northwest shore of this pond, and across the pond to my left, I'd heard a bunch of splashing. Well, I thought it was these local dogs from this farmhouse that was nearby. And I heard more splashing, so I looked over, and it wasn't no dogs. It was this thing, this creature, this stood up out of the water. He's all brownish in color, more of an oddburn color. And he was very robust, very big. And he took a couple of steps out to get up out of the water. He stopped and he looked right at me. I'm about 80 yards away at best. And I about crap myself.
No doubt.
And I'm sitting there trying to figure out, these things cannot be real. That's what we're told.
Yeah.
And he took a few more steps, and you could hear the thuds on the ground as he took his steps. And the way he picked up his feet, complete bend at the knee, and he stopped and looked at me again. By this time, I'm already trying to gather my stuff together to get out of there. And you can make out the barrel-sized chest, about 4.5, maybe 5 feet wide at the shoulders. Arms just massive, legs just massive. Hands, his hands were down to his knees. Mostly covered in this long, straggly hair, and no hair on the face. The face was a little darker skinned. Real wrinkly face. And when he looked at me, I could swear he had snarled. And he stopped and looked at me for a third time. By this time, I'm already standing, but I can't get my eyes off of him.
No doubt.
There's just this interest in this. There's just curiosity. Like, I just met Harry from Harry and the Hendersons type of thing. And, but he didn't look that friendly. And I knew at any second he could come around that pond and get me. I just knew I was no longer on top of the food chain.
Right.
And
So you had no previous knowledge that this was actually really going down before this went down?
no, you hear stories, people seeing one or giving an account of one, but I never knew that these things really existed. And it that changed me forever. And I held off as long as I could. Of course, gotten mocked. The next day, my brother and a friend of ours, we went down there. I told him I saw this thing. Well, we saw the footprints. They were 19-inch footprints, probably about 9 inches wide, with 5-foot strides. We seen the tree that he had walked under or walked next to. We measured that out to be about 9 foot, and to this day, it's as if it just happened this morning. Is that fresh in my memory?
Yeah,
And
I think everybody has that same reaction.
It made me aware that anytime I'm in a forested area or outdoor area, just kind of get the sense that there might be one around.
So with your friend that went and looked at the footprints with you, had you known about them or seen them before?
No, anybody I talked to did not.
But that friend that went with you, he saw the footprints too? What did he think of that?
Him and my brother saw the footprints, and
your brother, sorry.
Well, no, both my brother and a friend.
Okay, so what'd they think?
They couldn't deny that I saw something, and they knew I couldn't have made something like that on my own. And it just left head scratching type of thing.
Yeah, no doubt. So then what happened after that? How did that change you? Did it change you in any way or change your activities or outlook on life? What happened after that?
Since then, like I said, I think it's made me aware that if I am somewhere, I get the sense that there might be one around. Every now and then you'll hear somebody saying, oh, it's creepy back there. There's a bunch of paths. A part of the area where they hold their Mountain Man rendezvous every year. So you could Google that and kind of get an aerial view of what it looks like on Google Earth. And I'll tell my wife, I said, I get that creepy feeling being watched, or there's altogether 9 ponds, and in the main parking lot, there's 3 right there. And we'll try to stick just to those 3 if we go fishing these ponds. To go back any further, sometimes we just don't. And if we do, we'll stick together for the most part. You get to know people walking their dogs and coming through and whatnot. And there's been a couple of people I'll ask, hey, you're down here a lot. You ever get the feeling of being watched? And they'll always say yes. And I'll ask them, what do you think that is? Well, I don't know. And then I'll ask them, do you see these broken limbs, or you hear anything, or smell anything off? And sometimes you get some yeses to those questions. And there's one guy, he was walking his dog, and they were going along the river, and he saw what he thought was a black bear. And there's no bears in this area, none whatsoever. There's occasional deer. I've seen one elk cow down there. We know there's some moose down there, occasional mountain lion we hear about. And he said he thought he saw a black bear until it stood up and walked away.
Right.
And I said, yeah.
No grizzly bears around there?
You got to go further west.
Oh, yeah.
Out on some of the farmland, there's reports of them attacking cattle and sheep. But you got to get up into the DuBois area, a little town between here and Yellowstone. And there's accounts of black bears and grizzlies up there a lot.
Right. So did you hunt as well, or just fish?
I hunted for a very short while. Didn't have a whole lot of opportunities growing up. And going with a friend or two here and there when I lived up in Montana. And I hunted before I'd seen my first one. And after that, I didn't hunt. I always had that thought in the back of my head, if I was hunting, or if I took a firearm into some of these areas, what would I do if I saw one? Would I take a shot at it? Would I, try to get one, type of thing, and take it to the science community? And I always just left it alone and never messed with that probability.
Not a bad choice.
Yeah, I hear those stories from your channel and other channels that people will shoot at them and regret it later.
Yeah. Do you think when you saw that person, what do you think that? Well, do you refer to them as a people or a monkey or an ape or what?
I do not believe in the ape theory. Listening to your stories, the accounts that you read, Scott Carpenter when he was alive, I really got into his channel. I still watch his videos. There's so much information packed in them. And just thinking about the different parts of this country, different parts of the world, how these things act, the way they could spot you a mile away before you even see them.
Yeah.
Just their thought process. I don't think, in all honesty, they're a primate. I think they're much smarter, more calculating. That's just.
What did you get? Did you get the impression that there was was it human like when you first saw that thing in the face?
Kind of, sorta. I
Yeah.
just couldn't figure it out.
Right.
And at that
Now,
time,
do you think if you had a high power rifle at that moment, do you think you would have shot at that person?
probably not, because if I would have missed, or if it wouldn't have taken it down, I know, looking back on it, I'd be in a heap of trouble.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to have a face-to-face encounter with one.
Hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
So you were married at the time when you saw that?
No, I was not. So,
Okay. So how many people do you know that have seen these people firsthand?
oh, geez. I don't know any of them personally, but just talking to people.
But you've met people that have seen them?
Yeah, I've met well over a dozen people that have claimed to have seen them and give about the same type of details. The way they walk, what they look like, with the extended arms, the wide shoulders, the superior body building type, and how quiet they could be if they want to, and that you just never know that you're being watched by something like that until you see it. I've met well over a dozen people that have given accounts of seeing
Right.
one.
So how many times have you seen these beings?
I saw another one. The first time was in '96, down on the Wind River. I was fishing with my former stepdad. My mom's passed away, so I don't talk to him anymore. Saw one peering from behind a tree, swaying from behind a tree. When we came down this embankment, and there was a dugout under the embankment, and it smelled the cross between rotten meat and feces, and had all this matted down leaves and twigs and branches. Then we seen all these long black hairs wadded up and just nasty, and turned around to go over to the river channel itself. And in midsummer, the Wind River gets pretty low, so it leaves a lot of mud behind. We'd seen some footprints there, and I knew what it was. I started scanning the area. He still wanted to go fishing. I saw one, geez, it was a little ways off, at least 100 yards, swaying from behind this tree, watching us. I pointed it out, and we had left when he had seen it. But he thought it was just somebody in a costume and nothing to be worried about.
That's why he left.
Yeah.
Right?
Then 2 years ago, there's these bike paths that the town had installed. built. One takes up the old railroad line, and the other one, it's about 2 miles away from these ponds, runs along another portion of the river, and they cut back a lot of the tree line there. And me and my wife went down there one afternoon. We like just walking around down there just because it's away from everything else. It's the nearest outdoors area we could get to unless we want to go over to the mountains and go up into the mountains. That's about half an hour away. We came in, parked, didn't think too much of it, and I got out to go walk, and there's a dirt path that connects the 2 points on the main path and makes a horseshoe shape. And I went walking down that dirt path, told my wife I'd be back in about 20 minutes, and made about halfway, and I started getting real dizzy and nauseated, and I had doubled over, and I didn't know what it was. There's no power lines down there. And a few minutes later, I looked up, and she was coming. She had a bad feeling that something happened. She's sitting right here with me now.
Okay.
And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I got nauseated and dizzy." And I could swear when I started to stand up and I looked to my right to this thick brush cover, I could swear I saw one looking back at me, this face. But we went back to the vehicle, got in, and a few minutes later, I'm overlooking the path. It was at my 12 o'clock, kind of goes down this hill, and I thought at first there was some deer or something moving around in the brush, and this black thing, I knew what it was, stood up out of the brush and just started walking down this dirt path. It was in the fall, so some of the green had already turned to brown, the yellows and browns, and we could sit there and watch it as it's walking away from where it came from to where we don't know. And we started to get out. She got out first, and this was 50, 60 yards, no, more than that. It had to have been about 70 yards away, maybe.
Still pretty close.
Still pretty close. And it was just the right side of it is all we could see. And it was pretty slender compared to the very first one that I had saw. Wasn't as robust, but it was still tall. It was still big, covered in black hair. And we're watching.
So what'd your wife think of that?
Well, she started to get out with the binoculars. We always keep a pair of binoculars up front with us. Because if we're, in places where there's wildlife, we want to see the wildlife, especially elk or moose or something like that. And she started to get out first, and she had quietly shut the door. I mean, I could barely hear it close. That thing had stopped and looked our direction. It looked away, proceeded, and it just picked up its pace and just walked a lot faster. And it just disappeared into this tree line. And we don't know what happened to it after that. And she's sitting there, she's bugging out and, trying to figure out what she had saw. I said, I told you you'd see one if we sat down there long enough. It just a report, just hearing other people's stories, they saw one on the path or crossing the dirt road or down on the riverbed or something, or crossing the river. To give her a perspective, that's what we're talking. She had me walk down. I walked down to where we first saw it, and that's the second point where this dirt path meets the asphalt path. And I'm on my phone. We're sitting there talking, and I said, "Well, let me just come over to this tree where we saw it go by," and she could clearly see the difference of me standing there. I'm 6 foot. And this thing, when it was standing there, clearly over 8 foot tall. And it was just, I met, I lived in Phoenix years ago. I met Shaquille O'Neal. He's a big guy. I met the pro wrestler Paul White, the Big Show. He's yet even a little bit bigger than that. And these two creatures dwarf both of them in stature and in size.
Isn't that something else to see that, isn't it?
It is. It just blows my mind. Yeah, she still can't wrap her head around it. And to me, it's like, even though it was another one that I saw, I don't go looking for these things. I don't want to. But we still like the outdoors. We still try to get a piece of the outdoors. Like you always say, that's the real world, and it is.
It is.
Sorry about a couple of weeks ago. We happened to go up to Du Bois for their parade, and we ended up staying up there because she's never been up there, and we found a couple of places to camp and fish and whatnot, hoping to see some kind of wildlife. It's notorious for the elk and moose up there and bears, and we stopped on the roadside looking for our next camp spot, and the next morning we woke up to a herd of cattle up there on the mountain. And like, really, of all the wildlife, we get stuck with this? Yeah. But we both love the outdoors. We love being out there and getting away from all the mess down here in town and all the drama, and just, we hate it down here sometimes.
Yeah.
And if we could afford a cabin up there, we would go up there and just live up there.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would.
Oh, yeah.
So when you got slapped in the face with this reality, did you ever find yourself wanting to prove it to the world that they're real or anything? You know what I mean? Did you get obsessed with it at all?
At first, after I seen my first one, I wanted to tell everybody, family and friends, and of course nobody believed me. They mocked me. So I shut that down not too long after that because of the mockery. And I kind of gave up on that, and I didn't go down the rabbit hole at first. But after after I seen the one from behind the tree, I started to think more of this. After we came across that den, and yeah, you're going to love this. My mom and stepdad lived within walking distance of where these, originally it was just the 2 ponds. Now it's 9. And the river there, they live not too far from there. And a few days after that, seeing that thing, I'm sleeping in the guest room, me and my ex-girlfriend, and that night I was awakened to that same stench from that den. And they lived in a small trailer park. There was a few dogs. There's like maybe 8 or 9 trailers there. Few dogs out there just going ape. And like, what the hell's got these dogs all bugged out and going crazy? And waking up to that smell, like, didn't think too much of it. And the window was cracked open. The window came out from bottom to top. And I looked outside, and this thing was looking right back at me.
Oh.
And it scared the crap out of me. It was ugly. It was scary. Beady black eyes, the wrinkly skin covered, in the black hair. The face had no hair on it whatsoever. And this window was 8 feet off the ground. And here I am face to face with this thing. I grabbed her and pulled her down to the floor, and I said, we got to get out of this room. Yeah. And it left.
Wow.
A few minutes later, about 5 minutes later, the dogs all quieted down. This thing was gone. The air cleared, didn't smell it no more.
And that happened after you had seen those other two?
After my first one in 93 and the second one in 96 from behind the tree, it was a few days after that.
So do you think it was one of those 2 beings that you saw in the window?
I clearly think it was the one that we saw swaying from behind the tree.
Wow. They look angry, or did it look?
No,
What did it look like?
he didn't look
What kind
angry.
of
Just
vibe did you get?
more curious, maybe.
Right.
Just for the few seconds, it seemed like an eternity.
No doubt. How far away? You're probably like a couple feet.
Yeah, it was just a few feet away, and there's where I really started to go down the rabbit hole, trying to get books on it, and didn't have the internet then. Didn't know who to really talk to. You hear a few names, from the books and whatnot, and didn't really know how to contact some of those people. Ron Moorhead came up a lot, and some others, and I didn't know how to contact any of these people, but since moving back here to Wyoming 5 years ago,
You gotta give me 1 second. I forgot to plug in my power cord into the laptop. All right, give me 1 second. Yeah, the low battery signal just came up. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't plug it in. Hold on a minute.
Yeah, that's not.
I just got home, so all my stuff is nothing's. Everything's always a mess here. Hold on. There we go. Saved it. We're good. Sorry. It would have sucked if we lost power.
Right, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just now going down the rabbit hole, getting on the internet and watching your channel. I'm glad I came across that. Over the last about 3 or 4 years, I've deciphered for myself who to listen to and who not to listen to, what I get the most out of, how this puzzle could be put together. And there's just some people out there that are just annoying that I just refuse to listen to. I've
Right.
turned away from. There's been a few. I don't go to these conventions.
Right.
We have one outdoor event in the spring over in the town of Lander, which is about 20 miles away. And it's big hunting and fishing expo type of thing. And there's one exhibit there. I mean, I like the exhibit, but I don't listen to the person because he's got the whole ape theory and I just don't agree with it. That's just me. I mean, I could sit there for hours and just listen to some people or some channels and just learn about, how some of these beings in some parts of the country are violent, or how they stalk people, where people go missing and they're thought to be the culprit behind it. Or how others are passive. Heard a story a while back. Some lady, I think it was off your channel, some lady when she was a little girl became friends with one. I'm not out there to become their friend. I'm not out there to become their enemy. If I get that feeling to leave, I leave. If I'm not welcome there. Quite often, when I go down to these ponds, usually there's one area that just constantly get that feeling from. So I won't even tread back there. Sometimes you got to pass it to get down to the river. Sometimes I might not get that feeling. There's other areas where, for an example, it was last summer, no, 2 summers ago. This one pond, it runs east and west, and it's the largest of all of them. And walking down the path on the south shore, doing okay, no bad feeling, and come to this little inlet where I wanted to fish under these trees, and behind me was all this dead piled up wood and thick brush. It's died out, and you hear some rustling around back in there, and I just knew that it was one of them watching me. I tried to remain as calm as possible and ignore it. Sitting there trying to fish. It was a good little fishing spot, and keep hearing this rustling around, and seems like you're just getting closer and closer, right up to the point to where you just can't see what it is. And I keep looking back over my shoulder, and finally it got so annoying, I just pulled up my stuff and left that area because I didn't like the idea of constantly being watched. And I don't know if it was a curious juvenile or what it was. I just didn't like it. And especially when it starts to rain or sprinkle, there's some areas where there might be some thick brush. You hear rock clacking coming from. Then you'll hear a response coming away from any given direction. And that just makes me wonder what's going on. Why is there one sitting here but listening to these other stories? That's just a lookout spot. I believe people call them sentries, where they just sit there and watch people all day.
Right.
They put them.
I don't get it.
I don't know. It's just, why do they have to get so close? Or at same 2 years ago, we like parking down there at night sometimes because of hearing these different sounds. Like, that's not an owl. Come on, really? Or having big rocks thrown in the pond closest to us at 3 o'clock in the morning, while there's nobody else down there. I've been bluff charged once. There's a second parking lot to access these ponds just from a little further away. Parked there, and I was looking for a fishing spot that afternoon, and just walking along this path. Well, as I was coming back towards my vehicle, there's some there's so many areas where there's just thick brush, and there's vines growing, and so many hiding spots for these things in broad daylight. And I'd heard some movement off to my right, and I stopped, and I'm sitting there looking. Don't know if it's going to be a deer jumping out or what, raccoon or whatever. And all of a sudden, it sounded like a two-legged Clydesdale running at me. Heavy footfalls, really fast. You could feel the vibration in the ground, and it stopped right at the edge of this wood line where all the thick brush was, and I just froze. And that was the clear sign I got ever back there, was to get out of here, leave. And kind of believe that I have. Don't come back here, or don't look for us. I'm not trying to. You just happen to be in my way. My response. Yeah, kinda. Just that mind speak. I know Scott talked about that a lot. And it's creepy all on its own. If they could do this somehow, if it's very low tones that we just cannot clearly audibly hear, or if it's something that goes straight to our minds, I don't know. And I also believe that they could create portals and step through a portal and just completely disappear.
Right.
I believe that's how you see some of these researchers out there, if you want to call them that. I love how researchers call themselves the professionals in this. They don't know half anything. But you see one single footprint, or just a few footprints, start out of nowhere and end up in nowhere. How is that possible, especially if there's no trees around or something for them to step up on off of the ground? I don't know. I don't have the answer for that either. I've looked into that, and I haven't, nothing in the last 50, 60 years. But,
wow.
But There is a written story online. I think all you have to do is Google Sasquatch or Bigfoot Wind River Reservation. And there's this older First Nations lady. I think she's a Shoshone. Yeah, the Shoshone and the Arapaho. Two reservations, actually. The Shoshone being the smaller of the two. She's telling somebody a story that when she was a kid, that these things would reach into their open windows, little, I guess, adobe type of houses. I don't know what they really were. But how little girls and young women would go missing, and that they knew that these creatures were the ones doing it, and that after dark, kids could not be outside no more. Hear a lot of references to them being called river people. My mother had a friend that she went to school with, and her family lived just as you come onto the reservation from this one point where the Little Wind River is. You got the Little Wind and the Big Wind, and they lived pretty close to the Little Wind till it flooded out back in 2011, I think. And her two boys, one was older, one was
trying to
younger than me.
reconnect with your internet.
And
I hope this
my brother
doesn't
being the
happen.
youngest.